Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. Friday night. And I'm talking like I feel like shit. But anywho, we're alive, not really. The nukes are dropping, not yet. But Israel and Iran are attacking each other heavily, like bad. Seems like the worst yet. Like they're just hauling off on each other. So that's not going to be good. And who knows what else that can spring forth from whatever. But definitely not a good situation. We got Wham here. We got Eric here with us tonight. Eric Grimsrud. Did I say it right? I always mess it up.
You did.
Grimsrud. All right. And basically, we're here to talk about Führer Shitbird von Trumpelgooch, a.k.a. Trumpelgooch. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow's his wanker parade, and I don't know. You think people are going to attack it? That's a concern that, protesters. I've been watching some of that stuff. It's hard to know what's real and what isn't with it, but it looked like Mad Max was breaking loose in Los Angeles. I don't know if it's settled down or what.
It's not. Mad Max has not broken out in Los Angeles.
They were just
the entire. Yeah, they're just hyping it up. The entire area where all the protests are happening is less than a square mile in one tiny part of the city. I mean, Los Angeles is huge. It's huge. And I know people in Los Angeles that it's like, this is ridiculous. That's the national news about this is crazy. And like those burning cars and stuff, they're showing the same footage over and over again of the same burning cars. And those cars were started on fire by flashbangs from the National Guard or the enforcement people that they were using, that they're using. They weren't started by protesters. And this is witnesses on the ground that have said this. So it's like, it's actually both sides are kind of overhyping this. So of course the right is saying, there's riots and it's terrible. And the left is saying, these protests have consumed Los Angeles. And it's like, no, there are protests going on. But
I think
they're in one tiny area of the city.
Yeah, I don't think there's no coincidence that they did the same thing in Portland a few years back. Remember that? They sent ice to Portland, and it caused they sent ice in, and and there were massive protests. It exacerbated the problem. It created bigger problems. When they send soldiers into a city, they know what they're doing. They're creating a problem, and they know they're creating a problem. Mm-hmm. That's the intention. let's freak people out and send soldiers in.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
Right.
Right.
Well, and the National Guard and the Marines are pretty clear about this. They basically they are limited in terms of where they are. They can only be in places. They can only be on federal property by law. This is by law. They can only be on federal property. That's the only place they've been. They are there to quote unquote, support law enforcement. So if they do grab somebody, it's because that person has trespassed on federal property. And then what they do is they grab that person, they hold them for a little bit, and then they turn them over to local law enforcement. I mean, that's the law. That's what the military charter says they have to do. So they are actually prohibited from, and any military person will tell you this, they're actually prohibited from disappearing people.
Sure.
Now, ICE can disappear people, but the National Guard and the Marines cannot.
Was the original, the second version of Battlestar Galactica, the one with James.
Yes.
He had a great line in that show about that said the reason that you don't make the military the police is because when the military are the police, the people become the enemy.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, I've been watching that series again.
That's a great series, isn't it?
It's a great series, and in fact, it's very prescient, especially with the AI and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And
I named a character in my book that I'm working on for the Mabus solution. I named it after my the AI that I'm using to help me.
Oh yeah.
I did. I use an AI program called Sintra, and they give you AI employees, and one of my AI employee that I'm using is named Penn, and so I have a character in the book named Penn.
That's cool.
It's just kind of funny.
That's cool.
Anyway. Oh, Jeff, you're muted.
Jeff, you're muted.
These dogs trick me. They make noises and then I mute it and forget. But what's going on tomorrow? Is his parade still happening, right?
Yeah, I think it's all still happening.
No King's Day? Which, by the way, I love it's No King's Day because the king symbol is the key symbol for the Mabus solution, and it applies to Trump. So now we have No King's Day on his birthday. It's perfect. That's going in the book.
Yeah.
Cool. So the parade is tomorrow. Where is it at?
His parade, the parade that he has organized, the original parade was not supposed to involve him at all. It's the anniversary of the founding of the Army, and so they were going to have some kind of an event anyway. Okay. So they were going to have some kind of an event anyway, but it turns out that it just happened to be the day that was scheduled for it just happened to be his birthday. So he's decided to make it all about himself, basically.
Of course.
And of course, because why not? Because he's him. And so when he started doing this, so all of these different things, the No Kings thing started around that when he made that announcement and everything, and a few comments that he's made here and there. So I mean, there's No King stuff going on in DC, and probably in every major city there's going to be something that happens. I mean, I know in Albany and New York City there's going to be stuff. I know there's even probably going to be some smaller stuff in some of the smaller cities around here. But yeah, I mean, and you know, much has been made of it, but the fact is, you know, there's provocateurs on all sides, and what the real protesters need to do. I personally think that part of what they need to do is when the administration gets really officious about things, we need to do what they did in Topeka, Kansas, to shut Fred Phillips down. When Fred Phelps would go and he would take his, you know, God hates fags and all that, his signs, and he would go and, you know, picket people's funerals and do all this stuff. People started showing up dressed in clown suits, like in full clown suits with placards that mirrored everything they said, so that, you know, make America clownish again, or something like that, because these people don't understand humor at all. They don't get it, you know. So instead of being, I mean, you can be aggressive, you can be or straightforward, or, you know, assertive, but it doesn't all have to be angry, because frankly, this is all also bullshit. You know, and you have to just call it bullshit. You have to show that it's bullshit. You know, it's humor that's going to pull the rug out from under this at some point.
You know, I don't think anything is going to be solved until that guy's gone. And I mean gone.
Well, I agree.
It's too late, right? That is too late. So, yeah, I'd say it's just, yeah.
There was
I hate to say I told you so.
Let me read this meme from an African American gentleman named Joshi.
Sure.
It says, it's from Facebook. It says, crazy how white people can sit through Star Wars and totally understand the point of the rebellion and why the Empire is bad, but let that shit happen right in front of them and they suddenly act like violent resistance is a foreign concept.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, it is probably.
I think he'd have made a better case if he just said, we always choose to end up being the Empire.
And then
that's because we started out as the Empire.
There's going to be a Spaceballs Part 2.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, that's some news. Some breaking news. Rick Moranis is going to be in it.
Oh, that's great.
And everybody who's alive, I guess, will be reprising their roles. Wasn't John Candy the...
Except for ARP. I was just going to say ARP is not going to be in it.
Yeah, definitely not. But I just realized that we've been watching old John Candy movies, and they don't make them like that anymore. Like, some of the comedies, the old ones.
Oh, gosh. Blazing Saddles would never get made today. There's a bunch of movies that you would never get made.
Yeah, it would never get made.
Airplane's another one.
That's true.
I wouldn't mind watching that again, but just some of the stuff there was what. Go ahead.
You could make a hat, a brooch, a pterodactyl.
Yeah.
Right.
Johnny. I need to rewatch that. That is
blow up of the pilot, and you just set him in your seat right there. Just leave him there.
About Dracula.
Yeah, I need to rewatch
the blow up pilot.
Yeah. I saw Dracula Dead and Loving It not too long ago. That was still good. Funny. Leslie Nielsen. So, what stage are we at with all this, Eric? For some reason I keep calling my dog Edgar Eric by accident. Come here, Eric. I was like, Edgar. He's a cool Boston Terrier, so it's not an insult. The little gentleman. I guess the names sound similar, and then we're doing all this. So for some reason,
little gentleman.
Come here, Eric.
Little gentleman.
Edgar, I mean.
Well, if we're gonna do a deep dive on the Mabus, I think most of your people probably already know what the Mabus solution is, but I can recap it.
Well, let's just the phase of everything right now. Do you think the bad thing's going to happen to him this year, or is it farther off?
I think
not necessarily a bad thing, but
yeah. Well, and we don't know how it's going to happen. I mean, the guy eats cheeseburgers all the time, so he got a heart attack. I don't know.
There was something going around saying he had a cataract. I mean, not a cataract, a kidney bag.
So bringing us up to date. Since I started the Mabus solution in 2016, I've had a number of things that have occurred that I have gotten correct before the fact, which should be impossible. It's said to be impossible. It turns out it's not impossible. COVID, or 1 million people are going to die and the economy is going to crash. I got that right before the fact, and I also got the Trump assassination attempt correct before the fact. When he got found guilty of that hearing, I sent an email to 20 people saying the assassination attempt was coming up in the next 4 to 6 weeks. I was 2 weeks off. It happened in 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So just based on the project, I have accurately gotten events either somewhat or complete or almost completely correct. But like, we're talking about dissecting things out of poetry. So we've gone through every one of the trumpet quatrains with the exception of his death. We've gone through every single one. The last one was the assassination attempt. So with the assassination attempt, the quatrain reads, "The trumpet shakes in great discord, an agreement broken, lifting the face to heaven. The bloody mouth shall swim with blood, the face anointed with milk and honey lies on the ground." So that's the assassination attempt. The shaking in great discord, he's pissed. Agreement broken. Stormy Daniels, judgment. Lifting the face to heaven, judgment. And I sent out, and that's also published on the site. That was about a judgment thing. So when that judgment happened, that's when I sent out that email. The face anointed with, or let's see, the trumpet shakes. Hold on, I lost my place in the quatrain. Yeah, the face anointed with milk and honey lies on the ground. Hold on, I missed a line. Let's see. The trumpet shakes in great discord, an agreement broken, lifting the face to heaven. The bloody mouth shall swim with blood. The face anointed with milk and honey lies on the ground. So the bloody mouth is a verbal style. Shall swim with blood is just blood dripping off his mouth. The face anointed with milk and honey is a physical description. And of course, he was lying on the ground with blood dripping off his mouth with the Secret Service right on top of him. So that was the final trumpet quatrain. That was the final one. There are no more. We've gone through a bunch of them. 7 in total.
Yeah. And then let's say he does croak. Will the Republican Party just find some other monster to replace him? Is it all their ideology now that what he's doing is they're all like 100%? I don't think they're 100% behind it. They're more like slaves behind it, like Sauron slaves. But will they just replace him with another monster that's the same thing? You know.
Well, J.D. Vance will take over for Trump when he dies, right? That's how that works. So
watch out, couches.
Yeah, I know, right? He's not couch surfing at my place.
Was that? I couldn't believe
he loves your lazy boy.
I couldn't believe that Ron Howard did a movie about him, and I haven't seen it. But I mean, I might watch it and laugh at it. But it's called Hillbilly Elegy, and it's by Ron Howard.
Oh wow!
Does he screw a couch in it? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm curious about this now. But my belief, what's going to end up happening, is that Trump is going to bite it somehow, and I don't know how. I've been trying to work that out for years. I thought it was going to be at the assassination attempt. I thought that the assassination attempt wouldn't kill him, but it would lead to an injury that ultimately caused his death. That was the only part of that I got wrong. That was the only part. It did not lead to any injuries. So, and the reason I thought that was because in the final quatrain about Mabus, it says, Mabus shall then soon die. And so the question becomes, soon after what? So this next election that's happening in September, right? For the next election for Congress?
No, 2026. 2026.
2026, okay. Well, I know it's not that. Then I don't know what soon is about. It says he shall soon die, but soon after what? I don't know. But my belief is that World War III comes next year. So we're talking about all this probably next year.
Seems like there's a lot of drone usage. Someone could get killed by one of those easily, a drone attack. I know that's what they're saying. Yeah. Iran is launching at Israel right now, drones and missiles.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Well, drones, it is really interesting that, like, it's been like almost 25 years ago, I had a dream about where I was leading a group of people into a series of tunnels, and this is 25 years ago, in order to escape these small flying machines that were killing people. And this was before, there were certain types of drones, but there weren't like weaponized drones at that time at all. And I remember waking up from that dream, and we were getting away. I mean, it was like, because the drones couldn't follow people into the tunnels, not only because they couldn't receive the radio signals to maneuver, down in them. But and I was being successful in leading people to these tunnels, but it was just like, I remember in the dream, it was like a friggin' hellscape. I mean, when all that stuff started in Gaza, it freaked me out because it was just like the dream. Even the fact that they said there were tunnels in Gaza, it was just like the dream. It was so weird. So it's like, somehow I picked up on some stuff. I don't really want to be involved in that, but I don't think I'm always directly involved in the things I pick up.
We are
except that we're all involved. Yeah, we're all connected in some way.
One of the underlying things that I'm building in the book is my belief of how Nostradamus did what he did, which is my opinion is that consciousness itself is connected to quantum entanglement. So when you think of when you walk into a room and feel the energy in a room, or you pick up the phone and you were just thinking of this person, any of those kinds of things where just weird things happen would easily be explained by that. That we have the ability to pick up on non-local information because we're radio antennas. And like for you or me or people that would consider themselves empathic, I'm guessing you consider yourself empathic.
I don't think of myself any particular way, but okay. Some people have said that. So,
okay, you struck me as empathic, but people like my belief is that Nostradamus was extraordinarily empathic, and that's how he did what he did, through the same mechanism that you feel the energy in the room, but he was able to do it through time. Also, that he was seeing the world through the eyes of other empathic people. So he was picking up on, like radio antennas, the actual information from other people in those times. And if you have mass tragedy, that's going to draw the attention of somebody like Nostradamus, because that's what he's picking up on is tragedies.
Right.
And that's why he always picked up on tragedies, is because that holds such huge emotional, oh my God, right? And of course, you would pick up on that. Well, at least that's where I'm going with the novel.
Well, I mean, apparently, a lot of the story says that he had all those tragic things happen and then kind of went to the dark side and saw a lot of that stuff after his wife and child died from the plague and all that stuff. Yeah. That it kind of like brought on the more serious visions.
Yeah, I have some of that in the book. I have that the day that his first wife and family died, that he stopped being Michael de Nostradam, and he stopped using that name at all. And from that day forward, he was only Nostradamus. So I'm having that as the day that he that forged him into Nostradamus. So, but it's interesting to go through it, because I'm having to weave this story through the actual history. So it's interesting.
That is interesting.
So I had to do a psychological profile on him.
And was there a guy named Rutger Hauer that blew up stuff in history? Remember that Nostradamus movie?
Rutger Hauer was in the Nostradamus movie.
Yeah.
He was in the Nostradamus movie. And that movie could have been good, but unfortunately they couldn't stick the landing because they didn't have the third name. So it ended up just having this sort of ending that just was confusing. They couldn't stick the landing.
I know they also showed him like tripping, like he took some kind of psychedelics or something, and that's why he saw his visions, which I don't know. There's not anything in history that suggests that, is there, that he was on psychedelics?
No, I think that there is documentation of him being given things that were laced with what is it? It's a hallucinogen, not morning glory. What is it? It's
Mandrake.
Yeah, it's
right.
something.
I don't know.
But yeah, Mandrake. It might have been Mandrake. But yeah, as I understand it, they did give him something. I don't know what it was, and I don't know if anybody does. There are people out there who believe that Nostradamus was on drugs the whole time, which is flatly not true. I believe that he probably experimented with different things as part of just ritual. You know, he does not strike me as somebody who, like, I don't think Nostradamus partied. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that he just went and dropped some heavy stuff just for a good time, right? That anything that he would have done for a ritual or for a practice. It would have been a purposeful thing for a purposeful purpose, not just for fun.
And then in the movie, they tried to make him look like he was a ladies' man. Didn't they kind of try to make him look like he was like the sexy Nostradamus?
Oh, yeah, of course.
I forget the dude that played him, but I'd watch it again. It's been a while.
You know,
but
the other thing I've been trying to do with the book is fictionalize his family. and that's hard.
Yeah, because there's not
'Cause
much
I've had to
about
actually
it.
there's not a lot on them. Just the names. So I've had to build this whole tragic backstory for Nostradamus involving his sister, because he had a sister named Delphine, and nobody knows what happened to Delphine, but it was his older sister. And so in the story, and also something that's commonly held, people always say that Nostradamus was taught by his grandfather and great grandfather, his great grandfather, but the great grandfather died a year after Nostradamus was born. So I've woven into the story that the great grandfather teaches Delphine. Delphine gets burned by a meteor, and then Delphine dies in a fire right in front of young Nostradamus, like she burns alive right in front of 8-year-old Nostradamus.
Wow.
And if he had could only have read the signs, he could have saved her. And that is why he decides he has to learn to tell the future.
Is that from a meteor, you said?
So I'm starting the story with a meteor. And a meteor comes in and it crashes in front of Nostradamus's great-grandfather Remy and also Delphine as a little girl. And the first words of the story are, "Tell me a story, Papa." And then this meteor comes in like the week or the day before Nostradamus's birth. And Grandfather Remy decides it's a sign from the Archangel Michael. And therefore they name the child Michael. And that's how he becomes Michael.
But someone dies from the meteor?
No.
Okay.
So Delphine is burned by the meteor, and the burn forms a Hebrew symbol on her hand, which is dangerous. And in later on, when and she becomes like the teacher of Nostradamus and the beloved sister and all this stuff. And then at eldest brother Pierre's wedding, the evil bishop sees the Hebrew symbol, and that's heresy. And so he sends soldiers to go get Delphine from the Nostradam family home, and they torch the home, and Nostradamus watches his beloved sister burned alive.
Cool. She's burned alive? Wait a minute.
Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be grisly.
She doesn't die.
No, she dies.
Oh.
She dies a grisly death right in front of young Nostradamus, and it scars him for life.
I wonder this with Nostradamus. If you're in a life, what if someone has the ability to look into future lives or past lives through the eyes of those individuals and see what's in front of them? And
so that's an interesting one, seeing through the eyes of your past and future lives.
And I think there may be something with him and that somehow. I don't know exactly how, but I know I'm someone that I still can sometimes, but not like I used to, look into the heavens and see light beings everywhere, like it's a giant airport, like right above the earth to where we may go when we die. I mean, they're crazy as hell and hallucinating, or I'm really seeing like a weird terminal above the earth where light beings and souls get shuffled back and forth, which it makes logical sense. I'm not the only one that said similar things like that, but I've seen it with my bare eyes, just looking into the heavens. And now sometimes I can, but not like I used to, not like it was much more vivid and plain, but now it's kind of like not like that, but getting older and fatter, I guess. But anyway, the whole thing about seeing your past and future, there's something to that. And imagine, Nostradamus looking through a future life's eyes, and he's watching Night of the Living Dead or something, and he sees that, and he's like, "Holy shit, the dead walk the earth."
I know, right?
To him, it's real because he doesn't know.
So it's interesting that this comes up, because it definitely relates to the thing about Nostradamus seeing things through the eyes of other empathic people. That's related. Now having it the reincarnated soul of somebody seeing through their eyes of their future selves and stuff and whatnot, I do not doubt that's possible. I've gone through past life regressions. I'm sure that there's future lives down the road. I'll get there when I get there. but as it relates to Nostradamus, I sat back and I was like, okay, either Nostradamus had an ability that nobody has, or he has an ability that everybody has. And I concluded he has an ability that everybody has. And that ability is empathicness, not empathy, empathicness. And anybody who's empathic will understand it. You cannot turn it off. Anybody who's empathic finds it real annoying because you can't. It's like you have all sorts of weird effects out of being empathic. Like it's a real thing. So if Nostradamus, as an extraordinarily empathic person, was able to use that through a quantum entanglement bridge to see through the eyes of other empathic people in different time periods. So in my story, I'm making it, he's seeing through the eyes of children.
It's interesting for sure. I saw something on Facebook showing that Trump may have a bag, like a what is it called? Like one of those pee bags, and it was showing his leg.
I saw that.
It's pretty compelling. I mean, it's certainly, I think he's a wreck.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that guy could just keel over. That's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't have to be something scandalous. He could just die of a heart attack. So I don't know how it happens. I know it's soon after something, but I don't know what it's soon after. I don't know what the soon is about.
The other problem is there's been some right-wing personalities like Benjamin Fulford, all jerk-offs, Michael Jaco, Navy SEAL, and different people that are like right-wing jerk-offs, saying he has clones and doubles. And one time, even on Fox News, they showed an old dude that looked just like him at a gas station. And I swear to God, it looked just like him. So, I mean, nowadays, I mean, if Saddam had clones, well, why wouldn't they? And I don't mean necessarily clones like in a sci-fi way. I mean like a weird double that looks like you.
Right.
So that's all they got to do is double his ass. They probably already took that dude from that gas station and have him in wait. You know, it's possible. That's the sad part.
It's possible, but I don't. Trump has too big of an ego for there to be more than one of him.
Yeah, there's different ones. It's weird, and even that kind of Q and all that crap kind of tries to pretend there's more.
That's Michael Flynn. That was Michael Flynn. That got found out to be Michael Flynn. That was Q.
When did that get? I know they were showing some other people at first, but I haven't heard anything else.
Yeah, he got called on. He tried to deny he was Q, and then something came up where he didn't show for it or something. Like it was like, okay, that's the guy. So they did find out that it was Michael Flynn.
And they were saying he was a traitor and stuff on the right for a while for some reason. I don't even know. I can't keep up with the crap. I just see the stupid headlines.
Yeah, the guy was a freak.
They're all freaks.
I know, right?
But I haven't seen that Man in the High Castle. Have any of y'all watched that yet? The Philip K. Dick show on Amazon about the Nazis winning and stuff. It's something I've been meaning to. It's supposed to be pretty good, but I might watch it sometime.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
I have a bunch of Nazi research I have to do, unfortunately.
Nazis, bring out the bear Jew. Bring out the bear Jew.
So you might find this interesting, Jeff. I have in the book, I have a German soldier who is gay, and of course, gay was not allowed by the Nazis, right? If you were gay and you were in Nazi Germany, that was not much different than being Jewish. You could easily find yourself in the stockade. So to be a German soldier and be gay is a really big deal. So yeah, I'm creating a whole thing on that.
Wow, I was getting crazy now.
They're
probably all gay, but
yeah. I'm very sucked into the novel right now.
Yeah, and I've had some shows about the Hitler occult stuff. That gets pretty creepy for sure. With Peter Levenda and different people. Philip, wait, who was the other guy? Joseph Farrell. Yeah, long time ago, but that stuff gets real scary.
Oh, Joseph Farrell, he's a strange man. Some of his stuff, I mean, he's interesting. He's obviously very intelligent, you know, but intelligence doesn't mean you're not weird. I mean, sometimes I've read a couple of his, I've read actually quite a bit of his stuff. And I can like follow it up to a point, and then at some point he makes this kind of turn, and it's like, okay, I guess you're channeling this because you've sort of lost the stream of like actual physical or textual evidence, and now you're off on this other place. It's like, okay.
I think he blocked me or something. It's probably over politics or something. I don't remember.
Well, he's very right wing in an odd kind of way, and he's also strangely Christian. I mean, I don't mean there's that being Christian is necessarily strange. He's Christian in a strange way, in a way that that lends itself to certain kinds of conspiracy theories, and not your normal MAGA Christians conspiracy theories. He converted at some point to Orthodoxy, to Russian Orthodoxy. And so he has these really weird ideas about Putin.
Oh.
It's like, no, Putin is a psychopath, okay? He just is. He's proud of it. He just is. All the evidence is in. It's not like he even hides it. So he's not, he makes him in some of his stuff into this weird, almost semi-messianic figure. It's weird. It's just really weird.
Tell him a guy that thinks that Putin will end up nuking Ukraine.
Well, yeah. Well, lots of people are afraid of that.
Yeah, I know. I'm real afraid of that.
Putin seems Antichrist-like to me. I mean, there's obviously can be a collective of these things, like Lord of the Rings, kind of Sauron-ish infection.
Well, the problem is that I think that so Nostradamus's Mabus puzzle led people to run around for hundreds of years trying to pick out who they thought it sounded like. Right? That's how people run around. It's this one. It's that person. Nobody ever actually cracked the underlying encryption to actually find out.
Yeah.
So you have this whole thing of people running around. Maybe it's this person. Maybe it's that person.
Give us a little, for our audience, a little breakdown of how you got Drumpf to mean Mabus, the Antichrist, and the acronyms and breakdowns. Just kind of a summary, just for people that may just be listening.
Absolutely. So the Mabus solution is unique. And the reason it's unique is that it is based upon Nostradamus' own work. It's based on the idea that the only one who cracked Nostradamus is Nostradamus himself. So Nostradamus gave 3 names of 3 major historical figures, each whose lives would each lead to greater war. And he called them antichrists. And I don't know if Nostradamus was inferring that it was connected to the literal Antichrist, or he was just using, description of them. But people get all wrapped up on that point, and it's a silly thing to get wrapped up on. These are 3 major historical figures who will be responsible for great wars. And the first name he gave was Napoleon. And Napoleon was within a word puzzle comprised of 2 parts, an anagram and a political accent. Napoleon Roy. And he also, within the word puzzle, he even used Napoleon's original Corsican spelling. So Nostradamus is credited, this is something that he is definitely credited for, of predicting Napoleon by name 150 years in advance. The second name he gave was Hitler. And that name was also within a word puzzle comprised of an anagram and then 2 other coding mechanisms. I call them a dial and a flip. Basically, one is turning a letter in different directions. The other is going up a letter or down a letter. But they're definite coding mechanisms. So the final puzzle, Mabus, or Mabus, depending on how you want to say it, people have looked at that as a 5-letter anagram for 500 years almost. There are only 120 possible combinations for a 5-letter anagram, and over 500 years, every single one of them has been tried multiple times. So that method is wrong. Within the poetry, it specifically states, in one of the quatrains, "King summoned by trumpet." And that is an instruction. Hey, Wham, what's the root word of summon? You're on mute.
Wham's on mute.
The root word of summon?
Yeah, what's the root of summon? What's the root word for summon?
I don't know.
Sum.
Okay. I think that it's probably something other than that, but that's all right. Go ahead.
So summon, sum, math. That means it's a math puzzle. King summoned by trumpet as a poetic instruction infers directly that it's a math puzzle because the root of summon is sum. And you summon or sum the king symbol, king summoned by trumpet, you summon the king symbol adjacent to the trumpet. Who's the trumpet? Mabus. When you place the king symbol adjacent to the final name, it becomes a 6-character algebra puzzle. And you're not adding a letter, you are adding a symbol as instructed in the poetry. When you do that one thing, all 3 names unlock in an algebraic sequence. All 3. The first puzzle unlocks anagram political accent. The second puzzle unlocks via a political accent, a dial and a flip. The third puzzle cracks via a anagram, political accent, 2 dials, 2 flips. And it works symmetrically, which is flat impossible. It shouldn't work.
It's crazy.
So it is correct. It doesn't matter how many times you do it. You can do it 100,000 times. You can do the puzzle. It comes out the same every single time. If you follow the encryption exampled by Nostradamus himself in puzzle 1 and 2, when you place the king symbol adjacent to the final name and follow the exact encryption method displayed by Nostradamus in sequence, cracks to drop. It's not a question. It's an algebraic fact. Anybody can do it.
And it's interesting. I looked up summon, and it's actually from the French or originally from the Latin, but through it the root of the word came into the French. And what's interesting about it is that it does very specifically connect to a king. It's very specifically what it means is it means that it means to call or notify by a designated high authority. In other words, like a king or
right.
a herald that is connected to a king, in order to find out the particulars of something that is going to occur or appear
right.
at a certain time and place.
Catherine de Medici, is that the Queen Catherine from French history? Catherine de Medici, I'm not saying it right, but she summoned Nostradamus when she read his book, The Prophecies, and saw the quatrain about her husband and about her husband's death, and that's how Nostradamus got summoned to go talk with the Queen of France. I have to fictionalize that too.
Well, and it's and the etymology of the word in Latin is a combination of 2 words, because Latin often did compound words. Mm-hmm. So it's a combination of the word, it's the original word itself is summonere, which meant to remind privately, or I guess the word would be prod privately. It's made up of a Latin prefix, which means to be secret, and a verb, manere, which means to warn or advise.
I have an interesting question, and I'm just sort of interested in your opinions on this. I had somebody say that I should release the Mabus solution before he dies, not after.
It's done. It's done. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I don't know. It's like.
I couldn't include how he dies if I don't know how he dies. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, and also, I guess in this current climate, you don't want anybody, there's, I mean, I would be careful about somebody seeing it as a threat.
I've actively kept my Facebook group on this to a certain size and avoided doing even these are the only videos I do. I did another podcast for my MAGA friend. I did a podcast with him, but I purposefully have not. And with all of the AI videos you can do now, I could do a great video on this. But I tried to kind of avoid too much MAGA attention because some of those people are nuts, and I just don't
like exactly. Well, that's what I mean. It's like you don't want to necessarily put that out there, and then some of them perceive it as a threat.
Right. And I figure I'm already going to have them screaming, "He wasn't the Antichrist."
Well, yeah.
And then there'll be the other group that's saying, "Yes, he was," and those people will not be friends.
So I don't know. I mean, I guess I would take that under a certain kind of advisement.
I'm inclined to wait until after his death. Because one, I don't know my ending yet. I don't have the ending yet. I can't write the book without knowing the ending, and the ending has to do with his ending.
Right.
So yeah. So I think.
What if he was already assassinated and now it's his clone?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
So, I do have one thing that's come up though. I've got a lot of people on the left who are trying to say that assassination attempt was not a real assassination attempt. And I find this to be a really interesting conversation because I'm more inclined to believe the left than the right on a lot of things. But anybody who believes that was not a real assassination attempt, people behind him got killed. And Trump couldn't be bothered to show up for military duty because he said he had bone spurs. Do you think he'd put himself anywhere near a bullet? People behind him got killed.
Right, exactly. No, I mean, so I think that
was a real thing.
Yeah, I listened to this one guy who is an ex-CIA spy.
Right.
And he's, I mean, I don't agree with everything he says about everything, but he's interesting.
Is
it Bustamante or whatever?
Yeah, whatever his name is. And one of the funny things that he said was, because somebody asked him, he was being interviewed, somebody asked him point blank, if the CIA had anything to do with, because that was one of the rumors that the CIA had something to do with that assassination attempt. And he said, no, they didn't. And they were like, well, how do you know? And he said, very simple. If they had, he would be dead.
Exactly.
He'd be dead,
Exactly.
It's like, there you go. Okay, then. Yeah, I mean, there are some weird things about it, but I don't think it was staged.
I think he's got the luck of the devil.
Yeah. Well, like Hitler had the luck of the devil. I mean, there were like, I don't know, almost a couple dozen plots to kill him, and at least 14 that were attempted that I'm aware of. And there was always some weird thing that happened that kept him from being harmed.
Yeah, there was a table. There was somebody set up a bombing, and at this table was supposed to explode and kill him, and the table exploded and flipped up, and everybody in the room died but him.
It's
the table.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there were just some weird. Yeah, I guess we'd call them coincidences or whatever, but Yeah, there were just a lot of weird things that happened.
I should fictionalize that. I should fictionalize that story as the part of the Mabus solution, because that's a really interesting historical detail. That thing of them trying to kill Hitler, and they tried to blow up something on a table, but the table flipped up and protected only him, and everybody else died. That's a really interesting story. I might need to include that.
Yeah, I mean, Hitler, I really think on some level, Hitler was really supposed to take himself out. He was supposed to kill himself, and of course, we all know the rumors about how he didn't really die.
And I find that to be interesting because there is pretty credible evidence, but I cannot. There's just. I do think he died there, but I don't know.
Well, have you read Peter Levenda's stuff on this?
Mm-hmm.
Peter Levenda has probably assembled the most information about the possibility or not of Hitler of Hitler dying. And let's see, I can't remember. I think that I'm looking to see whether I have his books right to hand. One of them is called The Rat Lines, and then there's another one that he wrote.
I think there was a plan to be able to get him out of there.
Yeah, no, there was a plan to get him out, and
I don't think they actually did it though.
No, but they did get other people out. But right. but it's also known, and Levenda goes into this. It's also known that there were a number of Hitler doubles.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those Hitler doubles did make it out.
Mm.
And some of that was in order to confuse people as to whether he actually had died or not. And a lot of that is actually traced by Levenda. I have his books here on my shelves, and I'll have to go and locate the one that talks about this. But he goes into some detail about it because it was something that really interested him, and he says the reason why it interested him was obviously he has his own interests in these kinds of things, but part of it, and he tells the story about this, part of it is because in his work he ended up for a period of his life in Indonesia, and he met this guy in Indonesia that played the part to the point where his neighbors believed him, and when he died, Hitler's name was on his tombstone. But he met this guy who claimed that he was Hitler, who claimed that he had escaped, and now he never. I'm pretty sure he never. He didn't think he was, but he did wonder whether he was one of the clones, one of the doubles, and because this guy did have interesting and bizarre connections to the expat Nazi community that even to this day persists in parts of Indonesia. And he also had connections to the sort of wide-ranging Nazi network that has persisted, that some people refer to as Odessa, which, it's not like as tight of an organization as it's been rumored to be, but there has been a network of old Nazis. Most of them are dying out now, so it's kind of.
Yeah, that's all right. We made new ones.
Yeah, well, they've made new ones, but they are different than the old ones were.
Right.
I happen to know there are some of the old ones that still live here in the Hudson Valley, and I'm aware of where some of them are. So I know that there are some that still live, that are still around, but.
Well, I want to be careful when I say that too. I don't want to infer that anybody who associates themselves with MAGA is automatically a Nazi.
Oh, no, and they're not. And there's a difference, and there's a real difference between like the neo-Nazis here in the United States.
Right.
And these old guard
Nazis, right?
Because in fact, the old guard Nazis tend to regard the American Nazis as idiots, pretty much, as very unsophisticated, and often have had very little to do with them.
So, Wham, you might really like this. The origin of there was an America First movement back to the days of Hitler.
Right.
And so what I'm doing, so the one who discovered Hister in Nostradamus' work was Magda Goebbels, Joseph Goebbels' wife, right? So as part of the storyline in how the Allies, basically I have to fictionalize this whole thing of how the Allies find out that they're weaponizing Nostradamus stuff. So one of the interesting things I'm doing though is making Magda Goebbels responsible for ultimately MAGA. Magda, MAGA.
I see. That's kind of interesting.
A through line. Yeah, it's really interesting because she was somebody who was definitely involved in propaganda, and as I understand it, she may have been involved in some of the things that got the America First movement going, which ultimately gave rise to the, over time, gave rise to the Patriot thing that was going on for a while, and then that gave rise to MAGA.
Yeah, I mean, it's there certainly is a continuum.
Yeah.
There certainly is a continuum.
Friggin' Nazis.
Friggin' Nazis.
Freaking Nazis.
Yeah, I know. You know, when you watch the Inglorious Bastards these days, it's that's another movie I don't think would get made today.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind watching that one again by Tarantino. Old Tarantino, The Foot
That's
Lover.
a great movie.
Yeah, I've seen all his movies, and he wrote True Romance. You ever see that one?
Yep.
True Romance with it was by Tony Scott, but Ridley Scott's brother directed it, but Tarantino wrote it. That's a favorite. You've never seen that one, Eric, with Christian Slater and Val Kilmer's Elvis and Christopher Walken, James Gandolfini, Dennis Hopper.
No, I didn't see this one. I gotta see it.
Yeah, it's True Romance. It's a good one. Classic.
Okay, I gotta go do chickens. I'll be back in a bit.
Oh, there we go.
And it's chicken time. But I guess mostly with the Trump stuff, it's just so draining and gets so boring, and it just gets worse and worse to where it just like
I have a hard time watching.
Stabs you in the face.
I actively, I've already validated all of the trumpet quatrains, all of them. There's one left, and it's the one about his death. So I know he dies before me, so I'm going to win that bet one way or the other. Yeah. And I've got everything I need for my book one way or the other. So yeah, it's really scary. I mean, you have to figure how in the world in 2016 could I pull this up and then spend 10 years going through and getting every single one of those trumpet quatrains, every single one of them, validated them to actual historical events sometimes before the fact. How in the world could I possibly do that from 2016 unless, broadly speaking, I was correct?
We all have Trump fatigue.
Yeah. Well, there is a line out of the Bible, and I try not to pull a lot out of it. One of the things I did in researching this, because I started, for your listeners, I started researching this when I was about 12, 13, 14 years old. I wanted the final name. It was a riddle, And from the day that I saw it, I knew that if you could crack the encryption sequence of puzzle 1 and 2, you'd crack 3. And I knew that from the first time I saw it when I was a kid. And it took 35 years to crack the underlying encoding sequence. And it literally came down to just understanding it was a math puzzle.
Yeah.
But I spent a lot of years cross-referencing religions, prophecies, psychics, everything from Edgar Cayce to the Mayans, to just anything I can get my hands on, anybody's stories about the apocalypse, the end of the world, World War III, whatever. And the Bible is, it's loaded with stuff, but there's a lot of dogma there, right? But it does have a line in the Bible, in the book of Daniel, that says that this person, he shall speak words against the Most High. He shall put, the patience of the something and the saints, but his reign shall last for time, half a time.
Yeah.
So that's 10 years, right? Time, 4 years, half time, or times, and half time. That's 10 years. 10 years from when Trump took office is next January. January 20th next year is 10 years from when he first took office, and there just happens to be a comet going by.
Nice. What comet is it?
I have to pull it up. But it's coming, though. It's and I don't even know it's the right comet. But I do believe that Nostradamus was talking about a real comet. So,
well, now me and Eric are going to sing Judas Priest, Nostradamus.
That's right. That's right.
Nostradamus. I can't do it.
Well, I'll show you that later.
Judas Priest.
No. My roommate, he had a bunch of posters, and he happened to have an original, the Nostradamus movie. He had an original untouched poster from it.
Wow.
Look at this. Where would you ever find this?
Yeah, wow. At
Isn't that amazing?
At a VHS store, yep.
Perfect condition. Yeah, right, or VHS store.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I was very excited about this, so yeah.
That's cool. I need to frame it.
I do, I know. I just haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay, I figured it out. If people are interested in all of this Hitler stuff, like whether Hitler died or not, and the ongoing sort of thing about the Nazis, Lavenda's books are The Hitler Legacy, Ratline, and Unholy Alliance. Okay, those are those. So he has 3 books on that. He also talks about some of this stuff in his early trilogy, Sinister Forces. So the Sinister Forces stuff is sort of where he introduces some of this stuff, and then he goes into more detail in The Hitler Legacy, Ratline, and Unholy Alliance. And then there is a book actually by Joseph Farrell, which I have read, which takes some of Lavenda's stuff and goes into, it's more like the connections between the Nazis and international banking, and the whole banking industry. And it's called The Third Way. And the reason why that's interesting is because the Nazis regarded fascism, particularly their brand of fascism, as kind of being, not capitalism and not socialism. It was somewhere in between those two things. And they often referred to it as the third way. And this is where you get the term, that's why they called it the Third Reich, basically. And the term, I'm actually reading a book which I heard about. I can't even remember now where I heard about this book, but this book was written in 1961, and you can still get copies of it through Amazon, and it's an analysis of the roots, the ideological roots of fascism, especially the Nazi version thereof, because there are several versions of fascism. They didn't coin the term. Mussolini coined the term, but the German sort of expression of it, and what this book does is it traces that ideology to three distinct individuals who articulated different parts of what eventually the Nazis would use to sort of create their kind of fascism. And I can't remember the guys' names now because I've just started reading this book. The book is actually written really well. It's an academic book, and it's like one of those books that's written so well that you start reading it and you just get sucked right into it. But one of the and none of these guys that came up with these ideas, this was during the 19th century. It was during Bismarck. The first two people lived during Bismarck's reign, and he was the person who first unified Germany. Okay. And then the third person lived at the sort of turn of the century, between the 19th and 20th century. But he actually wrote a book which coined the term, the Third Reich. So from the Nazis took from these two people certain things, so that from one guy, they took the sort of religious aspect of it, the nation as a cult, basically. And from another person, they took sort of some of the economic ideas. And from the third person, they took some of the political expansionist ideas. But all three of these guys were really anti-Semitic. They were really, and racist in other ways. All three of these guys were basically what you would call ideological nihilists. They believed that, very much like Curtis Yarvin and the tech bros who are trying to take everything over, that are helping JD Vance. They believed that the Enlightenment ideals of democracy were dead, that they were poison, that it was absolutely crazy to believe that human beings are essentially equal, or at least under the law. And each one of these people believed these things, not because they were great thinkers. They weren't like great intellectuals. They weren't even really well known at their time during their time. They were like ideologues that each one of them had sort of a crappy life, and so they were blaming their crappy life on what they thought, what they called Enlightenment liberalism. Okay. And it sounds, when I was reading this, it was like, oh my God, this is like MAGA stuff. This is like, and each one of them had a very conspiratorial view of history. It was very strange. So I'm actually going to read this book and like do a video about it, because it's like blowing my mind. I feel like, like some of these people that have emerged, whether it's, Kurt Yarvin or Peter Thiel, or some of these tech bros that think that technology is just going to solve all of our problems, in some kind of a techno-feudal state. I almost feel like they're reincarnations of these dudes.
We got to have a world war first, and then after that we get our 1,000 years of peace. But we got to have a world war first, and most of there's
the piece of the gun, which means everybody's dead. So
and we got to have the rapture via a nuclear bomb in somebody's backyard, right? That's how that works.
Okay, well, great. that thrills me to no end.
I know. Yeah, I know. World War III sucks. There are some really interesting things, though, if you get into the conversations about what is in the future past World War III. That's an interesting conversation, because it's not the end of the world. It's not. So, There's a little bit of hope. We survived 2 world wars. We'll survive a 3rd.
Well, some of us will. I mean, not all of us will.
It's a good time to move to New Zealand, though. It's a great time to move to New Zealand.
Well, New Zealand probably doesn't want everyone to come there, though.
No, but in a worst case scenario, in 20 years, New Zealand still has agriculture.
Well, good for them.
And everything just, World War III is really happening to a level where they're dropping nukes everywhere. You'd probably just be better off dead at this point. That's the way I look at it.
Well, the thing that scares the heck out of me for World War III is if Russia parked tsunami bombs, 2 on each coastline, you would take out huge swaths of people. Or tsunami bombs.
Yeah.
That tsunami bomb is scary.
I keep seeing weird things about them discovering things off the coast of Florida in the seabed and stuff with Joe Rogan's face on it and stuff. I don't know how true any of it is because I don't take the time to watch it, but I keep seeing weird stuff about Florida and being discovered in the ocean and stuff.
There's pyramids off the coast of Cuba.
What civilization is that from? What civilization is that from?
Probably the one that sank.
Atlantis?
Probably. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I guess, but it's right along the line of where the Bimini Road goes. If you follow trace the path of the Bimini Road, the road would go right to where this pyramid is.
Nice.
So it's like, okay, that's interesting.
There's some cool videos on HBO. I don't know. I think they're on other services. It's called Calm, and it's just like Keanu Reeves talking about trees, Nicole Kidman talking about birds, different actors just talking about nature stuff. They're kind of short, but trying to watch animal stuff. Of course, we watched the Everglades thing, and that was just too much, like so violent. It was like, God. There was one that was really good. It's on Peacock. It was the Americas, narrated by Tom Hanks. That was like 10 episodes of just nature narrated by Tom Hanks. It was pretty good. But there was not a lot of death in it. There was some, but not as bad as the one with the Everglades. That was like depressing. But trying to get some nature going.
Yeah.
The Tom Hanks one's really good, though, if you need something that's on Peacock. But it's probably on other stuff. But it's called The Americas, and it's just Tom Hanks narrating nature stuff.
Well, I'm pulling this up here real quick, something that might be kind of fun to cover. I'll pull this up. These are the trumpet quatrains that have already occurred. This is the tracking of each of the actual ones that have happened. So in brief, hold on here. There we go. Okay. This is a notable one. This is a very notable one. How do I share something on the screen? Sure way to do it?
It's there, present, and then blah, blah, blah. Slides and PDFs, image file. Make sure you don't have anything naughty on your computer. It might flash up there.
Oh, you might want to give your viewers a thrill.
But I don't know. I don't use it that often. Sometimes, so it's kind of a pain in the butt sometimes.
Yeah, I'm already on it. There we go. Boom. Boom. So a few that are very interesting. If I can get this thing to work. Yeah, you're right. This is janky how it works. The trumpet quatrain about the election. This is a really interesting one. Gosh darn it, I just closed it. Illustrations. There it is. So here's the trumpet quatrain about the election. The false message about the rigged election to run through the city, stopping the broken pact, voices brought, chapels stained with blood, the empire contracted to another one.
Huh.
Isn't that interesting? The false message about the rigged election to run through the city, stopping the broken pact, voices brought, chapels stained with blood. And I have a picture here as I was going to pull up. It's a guy who was there with blood literally on him. The empire contracted to another one. So that one references Biden. They contracted to another one. That's Biden.
What quatrain is that? Did you see the weird Nostradamus comic I sent you from eBay? There's a Nostradamus comic book with 3 issues that came out a long time ago. It's only one. Yeah, it's just I think it's called Nostradamus Chronicles. It's just about his different thingies. Yeah. It's only 3 issues.
I think I remember seeing it. I think I looked at it and laughed about it, but I don't remember much about it.
Yeah, it's the only comic on Nostradamus that I've found anywhere, a comic book.
It would be hard to do a comic on Nostradamus. Nostradamus is pretty serious stuff.
Yeah, it's complex.
Yeah, it's really complex. Yeah. But this was Century 8, Quatrain 20. So we could do the COVID one. This is the COVID one. This is the one about COVID is interesting because I was talking about 1 million people dying and the economy collapsing well over a year before that happened. I had a dry erase marker board that I had all the ways 1 million people could die, and plague was on it. I crossed it off only because of Obama's pandemic unit that I did not know Trump had dismantled. That's the only reason that got scratched off. I thought it was going to be some kind of disaster, but I didn't know. But I am published on Facebook that commodities do well in hard times and that 1 million people were going to die. And the reason I knew that was because 1 million people died with Napoleon and 1 million people died with Hitler. Well over, right? So 1 million people of Trump's own countrymen were absolutely going to die if he was the correct figure. That's how I knew that. So this is the actual quatrain that pertains to. Hold on. There it is. The false Trump concealing. God dang it, it's too small. There we go. The false trumpet concealing madness will cause Byzantium to change its laws. From Egypt, there will go forth a man who wants the edict withdrawn, changing money and standards. So the reason that the thing that I got from that, from Egypt, there will go forth a man, that's Ophiuchus, the sign of Ophiuchus that Nostradamus was born under. Nostradamus was, most people don't realize this, Nostradamus was born under the sign of Ophiuchus, which is a 13 sign astrology symbol. And he uses, that is a direct thing to that. But anyway, that's the one about COVID.
Cool.
It's scary. It's scary to get this stuff right before the fact. It's really scary. I have the one about his death, or about his the assassination attempt. No, that's not it. There it is. Yeah, the assassination attempt. This is an easy one to break down. The trumpet shakes with great discord. He's pissed. An agreement broken. Stormy Daniels lifting the face to heaven. Judgment.
Yeah.
And I sent out an email to 20 people when that judgment happened, saying the assassination attempt was coming up in the next 4 to 6 weeks and happened in 8 weeks. I was 2 weeks off. The following 2 lines: the bloody mouth shall swim with blood, the face anointed with milk and honey lies on the ground.
Well,
it's scary to get this stuff right beforehand.
There's just something draining about him and everything. Like everything just feels like it's trying to drain your life force from
Well,
you.
that's what that's he's a malignant narcissist. That's what they do, and unfortunately, that's whatever power. Like I mean, I don't know if you know this, Jeffrey, because I don't remember if I told you, but I did a couple of, because I was asked to do this, I did a couple of videos where I actually did runes on Trump and other things, connected to him.
You do ruin like old Germanic runes or Greek runes?
No, Germanic ones, because those are the ones that I do. Okay. And I have my own way of reading them. I've read them for 40 years now, and I had I did 3 questions. I did 2 videos and 3 questions video where I just went into depth about kind of what the runes were saying specifically to me about these things, and a part of it was about Trump, obviously. And some of and this was in January or February when he was first doing his tariffs. And so people were asking about, the effect on the economy, and they were asking about his relationship between Musk and Elon. And of course, way back in February, I predicted that there would be a blowout between the two of them.
There was going to be a blowout.
In some ways that's obvious, but I talked a little bit about why that would be and what the dynamic there would be, and it turned out to be exactly right, and approximately when it would be. I said it would be in May or early June, and.
That's pretty good. You nailed it. That's a pretty good.
Yeah, and but I also talked about one of the things that came up in there was, because a lot of people at the time were asking, so what is Trump going to last his second term? Is he going to die before his term ends? And what was interesting about the reading that came up, the information that I got was that it was kind of equivocal. It was like if he lives or dies, it's not actually his decision, that there is a power or a force behind him. And I was very careful to say that in the runes, it's not a conspiracy. So it's not like there's a deep state thing or anything like that. It more has to do with whatever it is that is on the other side of reality, kind of propping him up, that he is an expression of.
Right.
And depending on whether whatever that energy is, sort of decides whether it's in its best interest as a kind of force in our history, in our whether it decides that is what is going to decide to pull the plug. The other thing that it said was that there's a good likelihood that he might go before the end of his term, but he will probably get at least 3 years in. That's kind of that's sort, because I tend to get, runes are very specific, and I tend to get time frames with them, but they tend not to do far in the future kind of stuff, because they're too immediate.
I think runes are where the Nazis got the SS symbol from.
The Nazis used some of the runes.
Right.
They used.
That's where they got it. That's where they got that symbol from, was Germanic runes. Are Germanic runes related to old Greek runes? Because
no.
See, that's interesting. Then I thought they must have been, because Nostradamus would have seen that Nazi symbol and he would have interpreted it as old Greek.
Right, but no, there's actually no evidence for that. It is believed by most linguists today, and by people who have done, research into the origin of the Germanic runes, that because there were actually several different versions of these runes, and it appears, and now it's possible that the individuals who created the first Futharks, they may have seen writing, like they may have seen Latin writing or something like that, but they didn't get that from that. The runes themselves, especially the Germanic runes, appear to be an independent product, and
so it just has a very similar shape.
Yeah. I mean, they were being carved on wood, so that's and so you're gonna make things that are easy to carve on wood. You're gonna make these shapes that are easy to carve on wood. Sure. Some of the oldest rune shapes, like the Berkana shape and the Tiwa shape and the Sawilo shape, which is a shape that the SS glyph was made from, some of the oldest shapes can actually be seen on very, very, very early amulets that date from what are called the Beaker period or the Vinca period, which are like 5,000 years old, and it's not clear that they were runes in the same way that they became later on, but they are clearly significant symbols of some type that are being used. So what a lot of linguists think now is that the individual or individuals who first put together the first Futhark, they probably were drawing on the idea was they might have gotten the idea of an alphabet from traders or something, Greek or Romans or something like that, but they were drawing on older traditions that already pre-existed. And then it's something similar actually to what.
Well, I gotta ask you a question. So, are you saying that there are Germanic ruin amulets?
They're not. No. Well, there are, there are, but that's not what I was saying. There are some amulets that have. Would you let me finish? There are some Germanic amulets, but they are later. I mean, that have the full Futhark on them, the full Elder Futhark on them, or have runic inscriptions on them. But no, the amulets that I was referring to, what are called the Vinca amulets or the Vinca carving, Vinca inscriptions, those are not Germanic. Those belong to a culture that existed before the Germanic peoples actually migrated into Europe. So they are an early Neolithic culture that existed in what is now Austria, parts of Czechoslovakia, Central Europe, basically, and it's actually and they predate the Greeks. And it's not known exactly. We don't know what these amulets actually say. But they have some. There are some runes, and they seem to be some of the oldest rune forms.
Sure.
There are some forms on some of these amulets that are very similar or identical to then what. Then appear as some runes within the Elder Futhark.
I think I'm going to need to talk with you offline about this, because I think that Mega Goebbels would specifically have been very interested in that.
I'm sure.
And that is a key. And given that they got that symbol from Germanic ruins, that's a key thing that she would have amulets. I have to weave fictional stories and story elements. So,
I mean, like I said, there are some Germanic, early Germanic amulets. They date back though to like the 2nd and 3rd century CE, so they are later. But
I can play that up.
What is interesting about them is that they do have, well, and the Germans that were Nazis, they did have knowledge of some of this stuff, because some of that archaeological work and linguistic work had already been done. So it wasn't like, it wasn't available to them. There was also I can't remember now what the dude's name was. I'll have to there was a guy who was a scholar during the Nazi period. He did not become a Nazi. He was actually a scholar that decried the Nazis. He thought that the Nazis were crazy, essentially. And he was deeply offended by them. And I think that he had to leave Germany at a certain point. But he was a linguist, and he was interested in the relationship between German runes and Slavic runes. A lot of people don't know that the Slavs have runes too.
Well, I think a lot of culture was a lot of Northern European cultures were wiped out by the Romans when they tore through there at some point. I think the
Slavic peoples were they migrated later. The Romans missed them, essentially. They migrated into the area a little bit later than the Germans did, and they were bothered the most by. Let's see if this is it. Oh, Agril, that's the guy's name. They were bothered most by Christians, by Christian German mercenaries. The guy's name, his name is Sigurd Agril. And Sigurd Agril wrote a series of books. He was a German-Swedish runologist. And he was actually writing in the 20s and 30s, the 1920s and the 1930s. And he developed a different way of understanding the runes than most linguists did. And it was based not on what the monks had recorded, which is what most linguists and other people had based their stuff on.
Right.
He based it on of one of the oldest runic inscriptions that exists, and which is just a rune row. It doesn't say anything. It's just a rune row, and various numerological significances that he figured out. That he looking at the poetry, looking at the way in which you can group runes and in 3s or 4s or 2s. I mean, he did all of this work, and he was a linguist, and he was also looking at the possible relationship between these different futharks, and then futharks that developed, or different runic systems that developed among especially the Western Slavs. And that was significant to me personally, because my mother's paternal line comes from an Eastern Slavic family. And they were among the last European groups to convert to Christianity. And there was actually a crusade that was launched specifically against them. In order to force them. It's called the Northern or Wendish Crusade, in order to try to force them to become Christian. So I obviously have an interest in that.
Sure.
But basically what Agril concluded was that the rune row that we have the one that's become kind of the classic Elder Futhark Runro, is actually a cipher. It's a cipher of an older Runro.
Interesting.
That he then develops in one of his writings, and actually, there was a book that was called The Dark Side of the Runes that was written, that is like a more current sort of articulation of this theory. But the reason why he said this, the reason why he believed this, is that he looked at accounts, well, not only accounts of like accounts of people talking, like shamans and stuff, talking to monks, but he was an anthropologist. So he also looked at accounts of like what indigenous people now do when they are talking to like anthropologists or, Western, academics, because often what they'll do is they'll give you a version of the secret, but they won't give you the actual secret, because the actual secret is always oral. It's not ever to be written down. And it's a way of keeping cultural things private. And so what he argued was that the Elder Futhark is a cipher of a more private system, but it leaves traces of that private system within its numerological significances. But it's I think there's something to that. The Nazis didn't like this theory because Agril argued that, and this is in the 30s. This isn't like in 1934. This is before, any feminism comes into this. He argued that this older system that the Elder Futhark is a cipher of was a system that privileged female shamans, and that privileged female mysteries, and so
now I appreciate
the goddess, and it's fascinating, actually.
Now I appreciate when I said the root word of summon is some. Now I see why you're like on it.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I'm
into that kind of stuff.
No, I'm very much into the root meaning of words, because I think that, like, for example, the word monster. The word monster comes from the Latin monstrum, and it means to warn, or something that is a warner, something that warns you.
I want to make sure to add you to my Mabus solution page, and I would love it if you did a deep dive on the page. But it's a deep dive because it goes back 10 years now. But I think that the underlying encoding mechanism for the Mabus solution, you would just find interesting.
No, that would be interesting. Yeah, I mean,
it really is. The encoding sequence for the puzzle is very mathematic. It's A plus B for Napoleon, B plus C plus D for Hitler, A plus B plus 2C plus 2D, and it works symmetrically for drum. The exact same move, the same 4 moves used in a sequence symmetrically. That's why it works.
Yeah, well, and what's interesting to me about that is that that seems to be the kind of thing that somebody like Nostradamus would do.
Absolutely. And he's known for using family names. He didn't say, he said Drumpf, and then he alluded to him as the trumpet. So it like this, my project, it connects with everything Nostradamus related. John Hogue's going to be pissed.
Well, he's pissed all the time anyway, but
I know. Something though that I didn't really appreciate as much until I started the book. So during World War II, obviously the Jews were horribly persecuted in Nazi Germany.
Right.
I didn't really recognize that the Nostradam family was operating with the same problems. Their family was Jewish, forced to convert to Christian, but they still maintained their Jewish roots, and that had to remain hidden. because that was heresy.
Right, exactly.
So their family, if you look at a family in Germany that would have had to hide their Jewish heritage, that's the Nostradam family. That's Nostradamus' childhood.
That is interesting, actually.
Isn't that interesting?
That is
and
interesting.
nobody really thinks about that. They write him off as an astrologer or this or that, and it's like, you know, they don't look at his family history, they don't look at his background, they don't look at his profession. They just write him off as an astrologer. It's so irritating.
Right. No, well, and astrology was, you know,
astrology and astronomy were the same thing.
Well, and astrology was one of the things that Jews could do. That was one of the, you know, during that time period and even earlier during the early Renaissance, astrology was, you know, and doing it kind of, especially for wealthy people or, you know, for aristocrats or even for royalty. A lot of the people that did that sort of thing were Jews, or Muslims, you know, from Spain, from Muslim Spain. But that was like a way in for people to during a time when, you know, their populations could be persecuted, and sometimes you would, you know, depending on who the ruler was, depending on the politics, you would convert, especially if you're Jewish, you would outwardly convert to Christianity in order to preserve yourself.
Here's something you may not know though. The area that they settled in, the area that the Nostradam family settled in. So Nostradamus's great grandfather, their family name goes back to the roots of that region, and it was settled by the original 12 tribes of Israel. So there is a chance that Nostradamus was a direct descendant of the 12 tribes of Israel.
Where did they settle?
As I understand it, the place in, it's like Salon, France or whatever, but I have to go pull it. If you just look up the family name for the family, it's now I gotta go pull it. Where's my mouse?
I have like 1 minute left.
Well, I guess we won't pull it. We'll save that for a private. We'll do that offline. But Wham, I think I might like to have you read the Mabus solution when I finish it, when I start doing the breakdown of the storyline, when I get the outline done. I think I would ask you to read the outline, to go through it for either for criticisms and also historical accuracy, or things that could be brought up. I get the feeling you're very thoughtful.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm trained as a historian, so.
Perfect.
So.
Well, so, you know, Jeff's in the book. He's a character.
Oh yeah. Well,
you already knew that.
And I'll do a blurb hopefully. But tell everybody how to get to Mabus Solutions on Facebook, Eric.
So you can pull up the Mabus solution on Facebook. I built the whole thing on Facebook because it timestamps everything, and so you can pull up the puzzle. You can pull up all of the work. I have purposefully kept the page at under 1,000 followers, and I maintain that until after Trump dies. I do not want to get chased around by MAGA, so I haven't done any videos or anything else that would promote it too far. I've tried to keep it kind of tight.
All right, we know you're on several watch lists, but
well, it looks like I'm already following you, Eric.
Oh, are you? Oh, good.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll come back here and look at it.
Go look at the puzzle is there specifically. It's a fully duplicatable puzzle and solution. I would love it if you would take the time to go through it.
I'll go through it.
I'd love that. That'd be great.
And everybody, listen, United Public Radio 107.7 FM New Orleans. We'll see you next week for Wild Trees. We're going to get into some animals and nocturnal creatures and insects and yucky things like that bite you. Everybody have a good weekend, and we'll see you next Friday with Wild Trees, Animal Microbiologist. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Wham, and have a good night. Have a good weekend.
Good night.
Watch out for Trumple Gooch parades. Good night.